Today we will continue with the module number 1 on information security analysis and management. So as my connection is very poor, I am starting with the recording and then I will submit it in the Teams also. So today's title is Elements of Information Security, which is the next title. So far we understood what is information security, what are the various types of attack, including information security and also the network attacks. So now the next title is Element of Information Security. So the three common element of information security is we have to discuss on network security, application security and communication security. So as such, the network security is nothing but whatever activity, that is we are concerned with only protecting the network component. So network component include all the things whichever is connected to the network. It may be even a computer, it may be a printer, or it may be a network router, firewall or gateway, or the infrastructure of the network. Okay, so network security refers to any activity designed to protect your network. So it protects the usability, reliability, integrity and safety of the network and data. So for this particular network security, we cannot just only stop with a single layer of security. Instead, we want multiple layer of security, because whenever we are talking on a network, there are so many threats existing. So we cannot stop with one single layer of security. We have to do with multiple layer of security. Okay, and also this network security, how are we doing this network security? By having some hardware and also by having some software. So we will understand what are the hardware and software involved here also. So whenever I am talking on network security, what you have to understand is we are not only having a wired connection, because when we are talking on wired connection, we can say guided medium. Okay, so we will not face so many issues when we are talking with the wired connection. But nowadays we are having everything is wireless network. Okay, so this wireless network are more vulnerable than the wired network. Okay, so because in whatever anyone can hack easily in the wireless communication. Okay, so therefore it is important whenever we are talking on a network and we want to do some security on the data, security on the data on the wireless network, we need to encrypt the data. Okay, then only we have to perform the communication. If we are not encrypting the data, under that case we will some hacker, malicious hacker will try to perform sniffing. Sniffing, as I told you yesterday, is nothing but capturing the data packets. Okay, so if you are encrypting the communication, under that case, even though he is collecting the data packet and checking what is happening, he cannot understand, because you are locking that with the key. Okay, so whenever we are talking on the wireless network, the very important security measure we need to do is always encrypt the communication. Okay, that is the first thing. Then when we are talking on the terminal side, as I told you, network is not only about the connection or internet, it is also depending on the endpoint. When we are talking on the endpoint, we will be having a CPU, we will be having a disk, battery, so many things associated with that. Therefore, whenever we are talking on network security, we have to take care of these things also. We have to do we have to give some physical control, access control and everything we have to implement on the terminal side also. Okay, so now the security solution. So when we are doing the network security, the solution for network security, we have to take all these 4 things into consideration. Okay, so first thing is we have to ensure the robustness faced with the potential attack. So as I mentioned, there are so many attacks. We have seen the types of attacks with respect to network attack. So any kind of attacks may come. So we have to design the security system such that it is robust to face any kind of the potential attack. Okay, next thing is whenever we are designing the solution, sometimes it will happen that the traffic may be slowing down, because it is coming across so many security stops and everything. So it is possible for the traffic to come slow down. So we have to ensure that it does not slow down the communication also. That is also important. Then we have to also ensure, because of incorporating the security solution, the bandwidth, memory, battery, etc. should also be optimize. We cannot just like that waste everything. Okay. And finally, when you are talking on the wireless network, you have to ensure the anonymity and privacy while allowing traceability for legal reasons. So sometimes if for legal reasons, if you want to be traceable, it should be traceable, but at the same time the privacy of the packets has to be maintained. Okay, so these are the 4 points which you need to remember when we are designing the network security solution. Okay, so I will just tell you again. First step is it has to be a security guide for any kind of potential attack, and whenever we are implementing this kind of solution, it should not slow down the traffic which is flowing in the network. And whenever we are doing this, we have to also should take care of optimizing the bandwidth, memory, battery and everything. And also we need to ensure that traceability, anonymity and privacy should be maintained, while at the same time traceability for the legal reasons. Okay, so this is a network security system consists of so many components. It's not, as I told you, we cannot just have only one single layer and we can say that our network is secure. There should be multiple layers. So network security components will be having many network security will be having many components, and all the components may be independently working or it can be working together. Okay, so you can see here I have listed out 5 components. The first component is the antivirus and anti-spyware component, which will be deployed at the endpoint. Here I am talking about computer, okay, which is connected to the network. So in the computer we can deploy antivirus and anti-spyware software. This is the first component for network security. Second component is firewall. As we know all, firewall will be you can configure your firewall to allow some traffic and drop some traffic. So whenever you are configuring your firewall not to allow certain traffic into your area, under that case, whenever the traffic is coming, the firewall will just check and it will drop. So firewall to block unauthorized access to the network. So it is not that every packet can enter our private area. If you are having a firewall, whenever we are having a network with the private area, we need to have a firewall. The job of the firewall is to collect, is to check whether this is a valid packet. Yes, it is a valid packet. It will allow into the private area network, otherwise it will not allow, it will be just dropping the packet in the network. Okay, so that is the job of the firewall. Next is intrusion prevention system. So as the name implies, it is preventing, okay, it is preventing any further intrusion. There is one more system called intrusion detection system. We will understand both the system in the later session. So there are 2 systems, intrusion prevention system and intrusion detection system. Both are acting as a security component for the network only. So in intrusion prevention system, it will be preventing any possible threats, fast spreading of the threats. It will just prevent before something is attacking, it will try to prevent. Okay, next is virtual private network. As you all know, whenever you are talking on IT companies or any private companies, you will be having a private network, their own network, which is completely protected and like a militarized area. Okay, so that is virtual private network for to provide secure remote access. And then finally we are also having communication security. Okay, so these are all some of the components of the network security. So next is application security. So the second element of the information security is application security. What we have studied now is network security. Okay, so in application security, as the name implies, we are talking on the application software, okay, or application hardware. Okay, so this application security are also called as APPSEC. Okay, APPSEC, it will protect application from external threats. Okay, so the job of this application security is to protect the application from only the application, not the network. Okay, only the application which the end pointer is using. Okay, so it will protect the application from the external threat. So what this application security will do, It will help identify, fix and prevent security vulnerabilities in any kind of the software application, irrespective of the function, language or the platform. So if you can work with a Java application, you can work with any application, any kind of the software, and the function may be different, the language may be different, platform may be different, but this will protect, it will identify, fix and prevent security vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities, as I told you, it's a weakness in the software application. Okay, so this is the job of the application security. Okay, so for this application security there are three different elements. Okay, so if this will act as a proactive and preventive method to manage the software risk and align an organization security investment with the reality of the today's threat. It has three distinct elements. The first element is, you can see, measurable reduction of risk in existing application. So already some application browser is running, it will reduce the risk. Okay, that to some extent. That is the first job of the application security. Second job of the application security is preventing of introduction of the new risk. So it will prevent not any more risk is coming into the picture. Third job of the application security is compliance with the software security mandate. So it will be written in according to the policies and guidelines, procedural guidelines, which was followed by the particular organization. Okay, so these are the three jobs of the application security, which is employed just to protect the application from the threats. Okay, so why this application security are important? Why do we want to talk on application security? Because in today's, if you see, there are this software, it's not coming from a single source. Okay, so like say for example, we are not having only one particular company is writing the software and deploying the software. Okay, so the software can be even in-house development team, in the sense within a single company they will be developing a software, or it can come from a commercial vendor also. Sometimes it is open source project. There are so many open source projects available, and outsourcing, sometimes we are also outsourcing the software. So like we cannot say a enterprise software whichever is coming, it's not from the own people alone. Okay, if I am purchasing some software from Tata Consultancy Services, it doesn't mean that it will come only from Tata Consultancy Services. There may be variety of source within there. So first is, it may be some portion may be only from the consultancy services, so we call it as an in-house development. So otherwise they may give it to some other vendors, they may be using some other software, commercial software, to implement this software. Sometimes they may be giving some portion to the outside people also for completing the project earlier. Sometimes they may be acting as an open source procedure also. So all these things are there. So so because of this reason, application security is important. Second reason is, software developers has an endless choice of programming language to choose. So they can choose Java, .NET, C++. So many programming languages are there. They can choose from them. So that is the reason why we want to have this application security. Third is that application can be deployed across the myriad platforms. In the sense, whenever any company is writing an application, it can be deployed. Say for example, it can be deployed for themselves itself, or some for a remote, a small public, or it can be even for virtual server or network or anything. So that is one reason why application security is important. Next, application security product must provide capabilities for managing security risk across all these options. So whenever we are designing a product, we have to ensure it is having all these capabilities to manage the security risk. Okay, and therefore to have the application security, what are the things we need to take care of? First is that we have to perform the software security testing. Okay, and that is very important. Whenever they are developing a software, we have to perform a software security testing, and also we have to develop a remediation procedure to prioritize and fix them. Whenever there is a vulnerability coming, under that case there should be some remedial procedure also to prioritize what are the vulnerabilities, and we have to mitigate the vulnerabilities. So that is the first thing we have to do. Next, when whoever is writing the application, the software programmer, IT professional, we need to train the IT professional developers on secure coding practices. We need to train them such that they are doing the coding properly in a secured way. Okay. Third is leveraging ongoing threat intelligence to keep up to date. Therefore, this threat is keep on changing. Every day the attacks are keep on differing. So accordingly, we need to keep up to date of all the application threats whichever is available. Okay, so whenever if I am an IT professional who is writing a application for some customer, what are the things I need to take into consideration? I need to have a good knowledge about what are the possible threat for this application. So that is very important. So leveraging ongoing threat intelligence to keep up to date. Then develop continuous method to secure application throughout the life cycle, development life cycle. So till they start application, deploy it, and till the application end, there should be a continuous method for securing the application, and initiate policies and procedures that instill good governance. So whenever we are writing an application, we have to follow the policies and procedure properly. Okay, so this is about the application security. Next is communication security. Whenever we are talking on communication, we need to understand it's only of transmitting or transferring or communicating an information. Okay, so we are transmitting or transferring or communicating an information from one end to another end, that should be secured. Okay, that is the communication security. There are 5 types of communication security. What are they? Crypto security, emission security, physical security, traffic flow security, and transmission security. Crypto security in the sense you are encrypting the information. You are having information, you want to communicate the information. You are performing the encryption of the information so that it is not readable by the any malicious attacker. Even though he is taking, as I told you, in wireless communication there is possibility for the attacker to to perform the network sniffing. Okay, so to overcome that, the encryption of the data has to be performed. That is the first thing which comes under crypto security. Okay, next is emission security. Emission security in the sense when just after the transmitter side, before entering the channel. Okay, just after the transmitter side, the particular data or information is going to come out, release from the equipment. So we need to prevent that particular data. That is the job of the emission security. Okay, so that should be prevented with the unauthorized interruption. That is the job of the emission security. Next is the physical security. Physical security means that any person who is not at all authorized to any particular data, it can be data, software, or it can be even hardware. Say for example, some cryptographic machine, he should not be able to access, or some laptop which can perform, which is going to transmit now. It cannot be accessed by the unauthorized person. Okay, that is what we comes under the physical security. Next is the traffic flow security. So now we are talking on the channel, whether a particular message is coming from one point to the another point. So traffic is flowing in the network. When the traffic is flowing in the network, we need to ensure it is not being intercepted by any other third parties. Okay, so we need to hide these messages. That is coming under the traffic flow security. And finally, the transmission security. In transmission security, it will protect the transmission of any particular data from an unauthorized person. Okay, so these are the 5 different securities, communication securities available. Okay, so with this okay, so elements of information security, there are 3 elements. Network security, which is concerned only about protecting the network. I have told you, antivirus, firewall, intrusion prevention system, so many things are there for network security. Application security, job is only to protect the application side. So we have seen that we need to train the IT professionals related to the security issues also. They need to keep up to date of what are the threats available and everything. And the communication security is protecting the communication or protecting the messages from unauthorized access. Okay, when the information is communicating from one point to the another point. Okay, so these are all the elements of the information security. Next title in our module is Principles and Concept of Data Security. Okay. So principles and concepts of data security. You already know what are the elements. Critical information characteristics is nothing but confidentiality, integrity and availability. And this data or information will be in either of these three states. So data may be stored in a database, or it may be processed by end user, or it may be in transmission. So information will be in either of these three states only. And this information security, basic information security concepts involve identification, authentication. I hope you all know what is all these things. Otherwise, I will tell you once again. Identification is nothing but you have to identify yourself. Whenever you are entering into any security area, you have to show some proof of identity. That is what, whenever you are opening your laptop, it will ask for username. That is identification. Okay. Next is authentication. Authentication in the sense you have to say that you are the only person, not any other person. So for that you have to authenticate. So how to authenticate? When you are entering into the computer by giving the password. Okay, authentication. So once you show username and password correctly, then you will be getting the authorization. Authorization in the sense authorized you are. It will tell you that you are authorized to enter into the particular secured area. Okay, so even if you are entering any secured security gate also, what you have to show your ID card and face and fingerprint something, and then only you can enter, right? Then only they will be allowing you to enter. That is the identification, authentication and authorization. Then confidentiality, integrity and availability. Confidentiality, you know very well, it's a private, it should be private. In the sense, unauthorized user cannot have access to the particular information. That is what confidentiality. Integrity, as you know, unauthorized user cannot modify the information. That is integrity. And availability is nothing but authorized user should have the resource available whenever they require to see the resources. That is authorization. So we have seen lot in all these things. Now the final thing of information security is non-repudiation. In the sense, you cannot deny that you did not do. Actually, a person have done a mistake and you cannot say I did not do the mistake. That is what a non-repudiation is about. Okay. So this ISO 14516 2000 has given some guideline for non-repudiation. Okay. So what are the non-repudiation services? In the sense, see, approval, non-repudiation of approval. What does it mean? It means that a person is approving some information, content of information or content of messages, then he cannot deny that he did not approve. Okay, so mostly this this repudiation comes under the signature. Okay, so once that signature is there, it means that okay, he has approved, he only authorized and everything. So approval in the sense non-repudiation approval, it will provide a proof of who is responsible for approving of the content of the messages. Okay, next is non-repudiation of sending. The person is sending some message, he cannot deny that I did not send. Okay, that is the non-repudiation of sending. So there should be some proof for sending the message. That is the non-repudiation of sending. Non-repudiation of origin. Origin in the sense it is a combination of approval and sending. So once approval is given and the sending procedure has started, then that is the origin. So next is submission. Submission, where are we submitting? After completing the approval, sending and origin, we are submitting it for the delivery agent to deliver the message to the transmission line. Okay. So here there should be some proof. So non-repudiation of submission in the sense we cannot deny that we did not submit. Okay, so we will here we will be having a proof that the delivery agent has accepted the message for transmission. Some proof will be there. Delivery agents accepted for transmission of the messages. Okay, and then non-repudiation of transport when it is messages traveling from the sender till the delivery agent has delivered the messages. The complete area of communication we call it as an transport. So again there should be some proof that the message has been delivered to the intended receiver. Okay. Then receipt, non-repudiation of receipt, it tells that you cannot deny that you have received and you cannot say that I did not receive. Okay, so you should be providing some proof. That is what a non-repudiation of the receipt. Then then knowledge. Knowledge in the sense he has recognized the content of the received message. The particular person has received and recognized what is the message. So he cannot say I did not know anything. That is a non-repudiation of the knowledge. So we need to have some proof for that. Finally, the delivery. Non-repudiation of delivery is a combination of receipt and also the knowledge. So this particular person at the other end is receiving the message and also opening and checking the content. So he cannot deny. There should be some proof for everything. That is what we call it as a non-repudiation of the knowledge. Okay, so these are all some type of the guideline given by the ISO for non-repudiation. Okay, so what are the points? We need to have the proof. Okay, next title is types of control. So controls, as I have told you, we need to have some control. Because like if you are having a laptop, that laptop control should be under a single person. Okay, so everyone cannot access everything. Okay, so the control has to be properly defined and properly mitigated. So what are the types of the control? So it is a very important thing in the security measures. Okay, so what are the types of the control? So according to the functionality, it is basically divided according to the functionality and according to the application. Okay, so this is further classified as, according to functionality, further classified as preventive control, detective, corrective, deterrent, recovery and compensating. So what is preventive control? Preventive is nothing but we are preventing any security violation. Before security violation is happening, if you are able to prevent the security violation and provide some access control, then we call it as a preventive control. So what is an example of the preventive control? Just giving some login and password and everything is a measure of the preventive control. Keeping the doors locked is a preventive control. Okay, so before ever a thing is happening, before ever security violation is happening, if you are able to prevent it, then it comes under the preventive control. Next is detective control. What is detective control? Some security violation has happened, but at least you are able to detect. Okay, that is what we call it as a detective control. So in detective control, in detective control, you will not lose any particular, it just comes under the preventive control. If preventive control is failing, then at least the particular system should be able to detect that security violation has happened and it has to alert the defenders. That is the job of the detective control. Therefore, the particular organization will have some corrective. Okay, next is corrective control. Corrective control, some security violations have happened but the data is secure only. Okay, so that it can make some sense, we can just try to fix the situation. That is possible. That comes under the corrective control. We can just try to fix the situation. Okay, even though security violation has happened, the data remains secure, so that we are trying and fixing the situation. It's a corrective control. Next is deterrent control. Deterrent control in the sense we are completely discouraging the potential attacker. Okay, so discouraging, how can you discourage? You can just say, give some notices that I'm monitoring. See, if you go into the bank, there will be having a cameras monitoring always. So that is deterrent. Everyone will be just afraid to take anything. That is a deterrent control. So you are discouraging the potential attacker. That is the deterrent control. Recovery control. Recovery control is something like corrective control only, but this happens in the situation to recover from the security violation, okay, and restore the information and its processing. So recovery control will also include disaster control. Sometimes disaster is happening, you have to include that in the recovery control also. So disaster recovery it will come, and also business continuity mechanism. So after disaster your business want to continue, that all will come under the recovery control. So how can we do this? By taking the backup of the data or having some key management, emergency key managements, we can complete this particular job. Okay, that is recovery control. Compensating control. Compensating control, it's an alternative. Okay, if one control is failing, you should be having an alternative control. That is what we call it as a compensative control. So therefore, if something is failing, you should have an alternative. That is compensative control. Okay. So these are all depending on the functionalities. Depending on the functionalities, how are we dividing the controls? Similarly, depending on the application, we can have physical control, administrative control, and technical control. So what is physical control? Physically, we are locking the door. We are having fire extinguisher. We are having air conditioning for protecting my chemicals. We are having flood protection system. All these things comes under the physical control. So depending upon the organization, the physical, there may be so many physical controls available. Okay. So as I told you, CCTV camera is a physical control. Okay. Security personnel is a physical control. So all these things comes under physical control. Next is administrative control. In administrative control, this administration of an organization will define certain policies and procedures or guidelines for any using the information. Okay. So if the policies, procedure and guidelines are very proper, then the security particular information can be protected highly. So that comes under the administrative control. Next is technical control. So technical measures, taking some technical measures such as like authentication. As I told you, authentication is a technical measure. Similarly, employing firewalls, encryption, all these things are the technical measures. Okay, so these are all the types of the control. Okay, so this is very important. In types of control, basically by either dividing it as functionality or by application, you are preventing before any security violation comes, you are preventing, that comes under preventive control. After security violation, at least you are able to detect, that comes under the reactive control. And after security violation, the data is still not disturbed, that comes under the, and you are able to correct the security violation, come back with proper information, that comes under the corrective control. Deterrent, you are discouraging the potential attacker, that comes under the deterrent control. Recovery, it's like a disaster recovery, like for flood and everything. You can recover by having a backup and everything, that comes under the recovery control. Compensating control, if any of one control is missing, you should be having an alternative control, that we call it as a compensating control. But under with our application, physical control is something but physically something you are using, a CCTV camera, door locking, security personnel, all these things comes under physical control. Administrative control, administration should give a very strong policies, procedures and guidelines for accessing the information, that we call it as an administrative control. And technical control is something like what we are doing with the firewalls, with the encryption and everything comes under technical control. Okay. Next is who can have what control, who can have access, okay, on what basis. Okay, that comes under the access control models. Okay, there are 3 access control models: discretionary access control model, mandatory access control model, and role based access control model. Okay, so and apart from these 2 things, there are also centralized versus decentralized access control model. Okay, now what we are doing is, we are just only defining, we are going to define who is having access to what particular system or data or anything. Okay, so that is very important. So that particular model, so who is defining who to have and what to have is depending upon three different models. So depending upon the organization, we will have either of these three models. In some organization, we will have all the model also, depending within the organization. Different sectors will have different models also. Okay, so apart from this, a general thing is access control is we are having centralized access control and decentralized access control. In centralized access control, there is only one single central party who will be a decision authority to distribute access control environment. Okay, they will only decide who can have access of what. That is a centralized access control method. Whereas distributed access control method, the decision are made and enforced in decentralized manner. It's not only with a single person. So many people will be there, and so many people, different people at the different levels of people will be deciding on which model we can go. Okay, so now discrete access control model. So here what you need to understand is this person is the owner. Okay, this person is the owner of what? A program, or it can be a Word file or any document. This person is the owner. He is the owner who is having the key for this respective object. He himself can decide who will have access, who will not have access. He can also decide what kind of access he can give to the person. Okay, so the owner himself is having more flexibility to decide upon who are all can have the access to the object, and if also access is there, what type of access can they do. So say for example, this person is creating a Word file and he is protecting with the password. What he can do, he can give to his friends, asking them to just read the Word file, give the password, but he will allow only him to read the Word file. Sometimes he may allow him to read and write the Word file or execute the Word file, something like that. Okay, so what are the advantage in this method? Advantage is it is more flexible. Okay, so that is a one advantage, but the bigger disadvantage is sometimes this user, this owner may go wrong. Okay, wrong decision, because he may give that access to unauthorized person, that is a malicious person. Okay, so that is a very big disadvantage. So you can see disadvantage, users may make wrong decision regarding access control restriction or maliciously set insecure or inappropriate permission. Next is mandatory access control. This is the second thing. Mandatory in the sense compulsory, everyone are having a access control for every resources. So this is usually made by the operating system. Okay, so every resources in the particular organization will have a access control, which will be always be decided only by the system administrator who is having access to the operating system. Okay, so accordingly they will be splitting these resources into 4 types: public, confidential, secret and top secret. Okay, so there are 4 types of data they will split. Public data, they will not have a bigger access control. Confidential data will have an access control to some extent. Secret data will have a much more access control. Top secret will be having the more and more highest security control. Okay, this is about the mandatory access control. So like we are thinking, okay, everything is having an access control, so this is a best system, but this is not always a best system, because like it is not at all flexible whenever because of the additional restriction and limitation imposed by the operating system. It is not at all flexible. Okay, whenever a legitimate user want to use in an urgent manner and he is not able to come for some certain reason, some other person want to access, it will not at all give the access. So that is a very important thing, disadvantages in the mandatory access control. Mostly this mandatory access control are typically used in government, military and financial environment where higher than usual security is required. So there is a trusted Solaris system was implemented with the MAC type of access control. Next is role-based access control. So like to just instead of discrete, it's more flexible. Mandatory is not at all flexible. So intermediate between these two things is the role-based access control. In role-based access control, we are not giving access to anyone. Individual cannot do this. There will be an administration they will only decide to whom to give access to what. So you can see here person 1, 2 and 3. There are certain 3 different resources are available. The 3 different keys are available. So this person is having access only to the first one and second one. Second person is having access only to this first one and third one. Third person is having only to the second one and third one, something like this. So it depends upon the role. So if a manager is there, manager will have access to the files, all the files. Whereas the personal assistant to the manager will not have access to all the files. So like that, depending upon the role, the access will be given or not given. Okay, and also it is only role based, not individual user based. Therefore, if a manager is no more as a manager, he has been now elevated to one general manager and a post. Under that case, he will no more have the access to the particular resources. So that is a role based access control. So it is intermediate between the discretionary access control model and also mandatory access control model. Okay. So with this access control, types of control title is also over. Okay. So you have to understand what are the access control. It's all very easy only. Next is vulnerability. Vulnerability is nothing but weakness in the system. It may be weakness in the hardware, weakness in the software or anything. So we will understand one by one. So there is a vulnerability management, security vulnerability management. What is that? That is nothing but SATAN, S-A-T-A-N. Okay. So the expansion for SATAN is Security Administrator's Tool for Analyzing the Network. So this is actually the security vulnerability management, what they have developed. It is very important because to just understand what are the vulnerability available and how to mitigate the vulnerability. So you can see here this highlighted version. Vulnerability management is the process we are managing, is the process of identifying those vulnerabilities and reacting appropriately to mitigate the risk. So we have to overcome the risk. So first you have to identify what are the vulnerabilities available. After identifying, you have to react appropriately in such a way that to overcome the vulnerabilities. That is the job of the vulnerability management team. Okay. So whether we need this vulnerability management team, why it is essential? Yes, it is essential because of at least these three things. First thing is persistent threats. It is not that this threat will come only in this area in this time. Okay, this threat is always there in all the domain. It is always there. Okay, and most of the threat is for financial gain, criminal agenda are all there. So therefore, to protect ourselves from the threat, always we need to perform the vulnerability assessment. Then and there check whether I have locked my door, whether I have switched off my whether I have switched off my computers, whether I switch off my lights, whether I switch off my gas cylinder. All these things we are checking. That is all comes under the assessment. Okay. So vulnerability assessment. Next is regulation. There is always a regulation. Whenever you are purchasing a software or anything, there is a regulation that there should be some management practices. Okay. So because of that, vulnerability assessment is important. And risk management. Risk management in the sense, whenever vulnerability is exposed, there is a risk. Okay. When you know there is vulnerability, you should also know there is a risk. Okay. Say for example, when you know that you did not lock your door, then you know that there is a risk of a thief to come inside and take all the objects. Okay. That is what a risk is. So to have a risk management and follow the regulations, and also there is an existing of the persistent threat every time. You want to have a vulnerability assessment and management team always. Okay. And what this vulnerability assessment people will do, they will be working in of the 3 different form. What they will do, they will be either doing only vulnerability assessment for network, then you call it as a network based vulnerability assessment, only checking what are the weaknesses available in the network domain infrastructure. that is we call it as a network based vulnerability assessment, or only checking what are the vulnerabilities in the database scanning. Okay, database scanning in the sense, yesterday I told you about the SQL injection. Okay, to the how a malicious attacker will enter into the database by writing a SQL query of his own. He can enter into the database. Okay, so to assess whether any such opening holes are there, for that vulnerability assessment is required. So that is comes under database scanning. Third is web application scanning. So just now we have seen all the application whichever we are using. We have to ensure that it is completely secure. For that, some assessment is required. In all the way, we will check whether there is any problem or not. So that comes under the web application scanning. Okay. Next is risk assessment. As I told you, whenever vulnerability is there and it's being exposed, then obviously there will be risk. Therefore, you have to assess the risk, and this assessing the risk and analyze the risk. So assessing in the sense understanding the risk is there and incorporating the basics of action, that is the assessment of the risk. Analyzing the risk in the sense you have to associate the risk with a particular action or the event. That is what we call it as an associating the risk. Whenever there is a risk, whenever first step is whenever there is a vulnerability, there may be a risk. There may or may not be a risk. Okay. If the risk is there, you have to assess the risk. And then you have to analyze. And analyzing the risk in the sense, you have to associate the risk with a particular action or the event. So it depends upon quantitative risk or qualitative risk. I will tell you that now. Okay. So this risk can help. So risk analysis, what are the things we can, what are the advantages of doing risk analysis? Is nothing but it will be improving the security in many ways of organization in many ways. So these are the 5 ways in which the security of the organization is improved because of you performing the risk analysis. Okay. The first point is it identifies, rates and compares the overall impact of the risk. Okay. So whenever there is a risk, it is identifying, rating in the sense comparing with some cost or something, and it is not only cost, it is also fame and so many things, and compares the overall impact of the risk. That is possible by performing the risk analysis. And it will also identify gaps in the information security. Okay. And it can also enhance the communication and decision making processes. Enhance the communication and decision making processes in the sense we can do, because of this risk, we can implement some more infrastructure, we can introduce extra infrastructure. So that is all comes under decision making. Say for example, there is a risk of my network getting attacked by Facebook. What I can do, I can say I'm just introducing some firewall in my area, and then I'm stopping all the Facebook dependent Facebook packets. That is possible. Okay. So that is what it can also enhance the communication and decision making processes. Then it improves security policies and procedures. So by having the analysis of the risk, you can also have a very strong policy, procedure and guideline. And the final point is increase employee awareness about the risk and security measures. So employees can have a more understanding of what are the types of the risk and how to overcome it and how to make the security measures. Okay, so risk analysis is important because of these 5 points. Okay, then how are you performing the risk analysis? First step is you are conducting a risk assessment survey. First, understanding from some department, some management, you have to take input and understand whether there may be a risk in that particular because of the threat, or there may not be a risk. So that is the first risk assessment. Next is identify the risk. Step 2 is identify the risk. As I have told you, you have to always associate the kind of risk with the event. Okay, so that is the identifying the risk. Analyzing the risk. Identifying the risk is just an evaluate an IT system or the other aspect of the organization to identify the risk related to the software, hardware and data of the. So just understanding this risk has occurred because of what, that is identifying the risk. Analyzing the risk in the sense, this is what we are always associating the risk with respect to some event or some action. What I have told you just now, the analysis steps. And developing a risk management plan. After completing the analyzing, you have to develop a risk management plan. How can we manage, whether we can take the risk and we can recover ourselves, or we can give it to the third party, or like we can mitigate something like that. Is the developing a risk management plan. Then implementing the risk management plan. After developing, you have to implement the risk management plan, and then monitor the risk. So these are all the 6 steps. Conduct a risk assessment survey, identify the risk, analyze the risk, develop a risk management plan, implement the risk management plan, and monitor the risk. Okay, and the risk analysis, as I told you, 2 types are there. One is quantitative analysis, another one is qualitative analysis. Quantitative analysis depends upon the cost. It's only it will only just check how much cost, how much loss has happened, and everything for the organization. Depends on numerical estimate. This is the numerical estimate. Whereas qualitative analysis will say what is the level of the risk, whether it is high level, medium level, or low level. So these are the types of the risk. Okay. Next is common vulnerabilities and exposure. So this is a catalog. This is a title in your syllabus also. CVE, it's a very important thing. CVE is a catalog. Okay, catalog, as all you know, whenever you are going for an restaurant, they will give you the catalog of whatever is available. So it's a catalog. Catalog of what? Catalog of common vulnerabilities and also the exposure. This catalog is developed by United States Department Homeland Security Systems. Okay, it's an open source catalog only, and this catalog is divided into 2 categories. One category is talking about vulnerability, another category is talking about the exposure. Okay, so this vulnerability is nothing but I told you, it's a weakness or a mistake in a software code that provide an attacker with a direct access to the system or the network. Whenever the attacker is directly attacking, then you call it as a vulnerability. Whenever the attacker is indirectly accessing the system or the network, then you call it as an exposure. So this catalog CVE is divided into 2 parts. One part is vulnerability, another part is exposure. Vulnerability is nothing but how the attacker can have a direct access to the system or network. Exposure is nothing but how an attacker can have an indirect access to the system or the network. Okay, so like this particular catalog is acting as a database only, which will have all types of vulnerabilities and exposure, anything till now. So it is just mostly it is making public, and it is publicly available for research and analysis. Okay, and you can see if you are coming across any threats now, and you want to understand what type of threat or what type of vulnerability, or if you are developing a software, you want to know whether your software is protected or not. First step what you do is check using the CVE website. Okay, first step you check using the CVE website. Then you can go to further develop the software to understand whether anything is there, and you can fix the vulnerability also, because this particular website will be having all possible vulnerabilities and all possible exposure, directly and indirectly, how the attacker can attack the system. That particular detailed file is available in the CVE website. Okay, so that is one thing. So here I have given you one example. You can just go through this example. Here this Google in 2017 have disclosed a vulnerability in Internet Explorer and Edge web browsing. 2 web browsers are having some vulnerability, they have just mentioned, and they have named that vulnerability as, they have named that project as codename Project Zero. Okay, and that team has mentioned to the Internet Explorer and Edge web browser that both 32-bit and 64-bit version that could be they are vulnerable, that may lead to crash the browser also, and along with the remote attacks, that is also possible they have made. And they have also told the Microsoft team and Edge web team, you have to recover from it within 90 days and please develop some patchwork to address the issue. Okay, but the Microsoft team was unable to come up with a particular fixing that issue within that 90 days. Therefore, this Google people have revealed the bug to the public. Once you are revealing the bug to the public, it comes under the CVE catalog. Okay. So, under the public, under this name, handle column break on column spanning element, in this serial number is having this particular vulnerability. Okay. So, like if you want to know what are the things in the CVE database, what you can do, you just go type this https:// cve.mitri.org, which will give you the list of all vulnerabilities and exposure, and it will be in this format. The format is CVE, tells you it's a common vulnerability and exposure year with the number, what sequential number. Okay, as of now it is only 4 digit, and if we want, we can also extend. Okay, so if you want, you can go and check this website also. And for every vulnerability, there is some scoring associated. Okay, the scoring depends. So, like there is no vulnerability, the scoring, CVSS scoring is 0, low, medium, high, and critical. So, these are all defined. The scoring is defined by NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, because like we need to understand, okay, with this vulnerability, whether it is low, medium, high, depending upon this scoring systems only. And weaknesses enumeration is nothing but a list of weaknesses available. Because of this weaknesses, vulnerability and weaknesses are one and the same. Okay, but so this list of weaknesses, it's again a catalog only that will provide a common language of discourse for discussing, finding and dealing with the causes of software security vulnerabilities, okay, as they found in the code, design or system architecture. So this catalog is also available in this particular website. You can also go and check this website also. So weaknesses and vulnerabilities seems to be one and the same, but vulnerabilities is a very bigger threat. Weakness is a flaws. We can say weakness is something like a flaw, like it may damage or it may not damage, okay, or it may not damage, will come under the weaknesses. Okay, so there are three catalogs available. One is CVE catalog, which will tell you all the vulnerabilities and exposure. Another one is CVSS. It's not a catalog, it's just only a scoring thing. Another one catalog is CWE catalog. All the two catalogs are available in the website. You can just go and you can browse. Okay. Next is remediation planning. Okay, some vulnerability has occurred and therefore you have to overcome from that. So for that, what are the remediation? How can you plan for it to overcome, come out of that and go for the regular business continuity? So for that, first of all, you have to prioritize. Without prioritizing, you cannot do the work. Why we need to prioritize? We need to prioritize because we are not having all the resources available with it. Okay, so what we can do is, with the available resources, we can prioritize the work which particular vulnerability is having the very high score. High score vulnerability in the sense high risk is associated. So you can see critical has having a score of 9 to 10. Okay, so if you are coming across the high score vulnerability 9 to 10, you have to give more priority for that, and within the available resources, you have to try to mitigate it. You have to overcome the vulnerability. So that is how you have to plan. Okay, so by first step is you have to do prioritization of the vulnerability, and then you have to perform the root cause analysis. In the sense, you just don't say this vulnerability has occurred and I have come out, I have overcome this vulnerability. You have to perform the root cause analysis in the sense where, who, what, when, how, why, like that. You have to keep on ask the questions until you come to the root of the place where the weakness has happened. Okay, that is what we call it as a root cause analysis. Okay, so these are the two remediation plan you can perform when you are having a vulnerability, when you are assessing the vulnerabilities. You understood the vulnerabilities is there, then you have to perform this two planning. Okay, so with this, our particular module 1 is over. We will have to check with the module 2 from tomorrow's class. Okay, thank you.